Hello everyone, this video is in our Chess960 series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we are going to have a look at a stunning game between Stockfish and Revenge in the TCEC Season 21 Fischer Random tournament. Yeah, I mean, I love games in which I'm surprised, simply. And I have to say that the way that Stockfish played this Fischer Random opening was quite unusual and very surprising to me, but somehow it all fitted together beautifully. So yeah, a real treat, this one. One of the best Fischer Random games of the tournament, I think. Let's have a look at the position, and again you'll see that in a way you feel that the pieces have been really spread randomly over the board, and that there's you can't really bring stuff together very easily. We've got a knight in the corner. We've got queen and rook together, which is quite nice. That gives you a sort of an idea of pushing the pawns here, b4, c4, b5, c5 to gain space. We've got a central bishop, which is always a little bit irritating. Knight in the centre, that might give you an idea to play some sort of central plan. And then king on f1, bishop on g1. Not clear what you're going to do with that one, and then a rook on h1. So yeah, not at all easy, really. I mean, a move like c4 feels like a decent step. c4 followed by f3, just to open up some squares for your diagonal pieces, and then look afterwards at what's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, what Stockfish comes up with is really nice, I have to say. So it played the move b4. Not the world's first most obvious move. I mean, it is activating the b pawn in front of the queen, which is quite okay. Thinking of going c4, b5, c5, but okay, doesn't really do that much for the bishops yet. And in general, always looking to activate those as quickly as possible. And in actual fact, you sort of feel, well, black could just play the move b5 and sort of block white a little bit. What does white gain from that? We'll have a little look at that. One thing that was quite interesting is that in one of the games I ran between Revenge and Stockfish on my 94 thread machine, Stockfish played the move h6, which was quite nice, anticipating c4, and then you go bishop h7, and you manage to swap off those bishops, and then give yourself time to castle. And after a move c6, d4, knight b6, knight e3, d5, yeah, black has sort of reached some sort of Slav position where it's managed to exchange off the light squared bishop. So actually pretty good for black. Thought that was quite a nice way of playing. But Revenge played the move b5, which is quite natural, just basically saying, well, if you go c4, I'll take on c4, and that'll free me up a little bit, and yeah, just basically mimicking white. And Stockfish's plan was really nice here. It played the move a4. So the idea is, if b takes a4, I'm going to go c4 here, and this bishop on d1 is going to get active to a4, and when it takes on a4, it's going to be attacking the pawn on d7. So this is a very nice way of doing things. If you go something like c5, I can probably just take on c5, because after takes, rook takes c5, rook to b8 is going to be extremely unpleasant, and of course I'm still threatening bishop takes a4 here. So that's a pretty nice move, and well, black reacted with c6, which is not stupid at all. I mean, c6 activates the bishop. It can come around to b6 or c7, activates the queen, and also allows the knight to come around to c7. But here Stockfish played a really nice move, and yeah, it's a really nice concept. Stockfish played the move a5. And this pawn move is going to be very irritating for black throughout the game. The key idea really is that white wants to follow up with f3 and open up the diagonal of the bishop. And well, with the pawns on a5 and b4, you're controlling some squares on that diagonal. And this bishop is also aiming towards the a7 pawn, which can become quite weak. And this knight can come to b3, can come to c5 as well. You just sort of notice that the pieces are connecting quite nicely, and it just hadn't occurred to me somehow that putting the pawns like this would actually make sense of some of white's other pieces. Bishop on g1, knight on a1, pieces on the opposite side of the board. So it's really nice vision from Stockfish from such an early point. And I mean, moves like c4 can come in even, just bringing the rook into c4 and also looking at the c5 square. So Revenge played the slightly exotic move h5. I mean, in a lot of my engine games, actually even Revenge, as black preferred h6, followed by bishop h7, which, sort of feels sensible, really. H5, is a very typical move, very common move, but I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what. Is black going to achieve more than white with this? Not 100% sure. As it turns out in the game, of course, this turns out to be a rather irritating weakness. C3 played, so white kind of looking to play bishop c2, stop the bishop coming out to h7. So that's what black does, bishop h7, and now bishop c2. Which looks very natural to me. I mean, in some games, actually Stockfish on my 94 thread machine played e4 just to block out the bishop. That's not stupid, but somehow bishop c2 feels, much more natural, really. Just developing a piece and also weakening the black kingside, which is already a little bit weakened by h5. And you're pretty sure really that black's going to castle kingside, so makes sense to get rid of some of those pieces. So bishop takes c2, knight a takes c2, and now c5 from black. Makes sense as well, in actual fact. Just trying to break this sort of bind, not give white the opportunity to clamp down on the c5 square, play f3, and I mean, that seems quite natural. It's just that, the c-file's being open, but this bishop doesn't have much scope, and nor does this knight either. I think that's Leela holding a draw as black against Stockfish in the final there. So very thrilling final. Leela a point up, playing well, but Stockfish giving us almost as good as as it gets. So really going to be a tough final there. I mean, these pieces are not that great, so opening up the position somehow does feel a little bit risky. In one of my test games, Revenge played castles, h3, sort of looking to play g4 maybe, knight f6, f3, clamping down on c5, knight c7, e4, knight e6, knight d3, d6, knight d4, and white's just a little bit more comfortable really than black here. I mean, actually Stockfish played these positions. They feel very, very weird, right? The pieces look in very odd places, but Stockfish played these quite beautifully. Rook e1, lining up on the pawn on e5. Queen b7, knight takes c5. a6, knight b3. Very nice positional move. We're going to swap off the knight on d7, play knight c5, and then this pawn on a6 is going to be weak. c5 was played by Revenge, but takes, and d4, and white was just a pawn up with a good position. And you follow up with castle kingside next, and all of a sudden your position looks normal again. So this was very nice play from Stockfish, and I think a very good illustration of what you're aiming for. This sort of thing, just started with this push of the pawns very early with b4 and a5, and that whole theme of weak dark squares, weak a pawn for black, just carrying on throughout the game. So c5 played, very aggressive, and now this move h4 from white, and not completely obvious why you're doing this. Why when black plays a move on the queen side does white play h4? But it's anticipating what's coming next in actual fact. So and also giving a nice square for the bishop on h2 to develop if necessary. C takes b4 played, c takes b4. Castles from black, looks quite normal, although it might have been a bit more cautious to delay that. But f3 played from Stockfish, so again very normal. Bishop on g1 is activated, and we're looking at this a7 pawn, but it doesn't look so bad for black at the moment. Just a little bit worried about how you're going to get that bishop properly developed, how are you going to cover those queenside dark squares. Knight d6 played. knight e3, and now I think it really starts to go wrong for Revenge. And to be honest, from a positional point of view, I don't really understand the move that it played. Stockfish played this against a Revenge in some of my games. Takes and queen c7, and that looks really very sensible. It's not an equal endgame because White's got this queenside pressure and these weak pawns, but it's kind of holdable, you know. Knight c2, a6, e4, f5, takes, bishop e7. We can sort of hold it together, you know, with black there. But knight c4 is a bit of a strange one, really, because, you know, you had this open c file, and now after knight c4, you're just going to take back with the pawn, and then all of a sudden your rook's blocked by the pawn. This rook's attacking this pawn, you know. It just feels a little bit weird. I mean, when you go knight c7, this pawn will automatically be hanging as well. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure about this move. I mean, there must have been some decent ideas behind it, of course. I mean, it activates the queen against the b-pawn. But it does feel like, you know, black's still very awkwardly developed, and, yeah, and also blocking one of its main ways of neutralizing White's play. I mean, rook takes c4 looked more natural to me, but unfortunately there's this little idea, takes, and then queen e4, hitting the knight on a8 and the pawn on c4, and basically, you know, White's just going to win a pawn with queen takes c4, or even start a kingside attack with g4. So yeah, I mean, this is again just awkward for black. Again, you're wishing that you hadn't played the move h5, rather h6. That would definitely make things a lot easier for black. Yeah, these moves h5, you know, they're very common nowadays, of course, and the engines play them all the time, but I don't think they're always good. But after b takes c4, well, Stockfish played g4. It's quite an amazing position, right? I mean, you know, pawns have been moved a5, b4, you played f3, g4, h4, but actually black's in big trouble here. The big problem actually is just the minor pieces, which are, you know, restricted by White's pawns and, you know, very poorly placed. It's quite ironic, really, that, you know, in the final, somehow Leela seems to be driving Stockfish into getting a bad knight in the corner and then not getting it developed in time. But here, you know, Stockfish had a knight in the corner, developed it early, and here Revenge is the one suffering. So, yeah, slightly confusing why that's happening to Stockfish in the final. Yeah, just Leela maybe playing much more strongly, I guess. But after h takes g4, h5, another pawn move. But actually, this threat of h6 to h7 is very, very dangerous, because this bishop has actually got a stunning place on d4, which is yeah, going to cause a lot of difficulties. And you know, White's development looks really slow somehow. But of course, you know, just in Fischer Random, often your pieces are developed where they are, and the queen on b1 is pointing towards the black king for free, and this rook is attacking the pawn on c4 for free. You know, somehow the positions of these pieces are just very good, and of course there's no better place for the rook on h1 if a rook's pawn is moving. So somehow, yeah, you know, Stockfish has just steered the game into a position that's just really, really good. So e6 was played by Revenge in the TCEC. I mean, in my games, on my hardware, black was always playing the move f5, just to try and block out the queen. But after h6 check, h6 rather, g6, h7 check, king h8, and now queen a2. This was proving to be quite difficult for black. Again, it's the minor pieces that are tricky, and the fact that the bishop can come to d4 and give a really dangerous check that's causing black some worries. I mean, White's just threatening to take this pawn on c4, you know, after which the queen will be very, very active. And, well, if this a2, g8 diagonal is free, you know, we start getting some very unpleasant-looking threats there. So if you go queen b4, I've got this lovely move knight d3. And if you go queen b8 again, I go bishop d4 check. You can no longer go e5 because of bishop takes e5. So knight d3 is a lovely resource. In the games it was going d5, queen a4, threatening to come into here, e6, and then amazingly this move bishop c5, which just wins the exchange because this rook can't go anywhere. Because after rook f7 I've got queen e8 check. And, well, the position's very odd, but after bishop f6 takes, b5, Yeah, I mean, Stockfish was going rook b1, playing b6, and just winning basically. And this white king looks very odd somehow, but seems to be incredibly safe. So yeah, I mean, quite amazing. I mean, this is a really weird position. I wouldn't be able to tell you, you know, sort of clearly that this position is very good for white. But I guess the big problem is that black's playing without this knight on a8. I mean, everything else is not too bad, although the king's slightly weak with this pawn on h7. But this knight in particular is the big problem. So yeah, I mean, this was one nice continuation actually. Just takes, queen b4. Rook d8, queen c5, and then the pawns roll. And, well, two connected pawns and also threats against the king side. It's just too much. And, yeah, this was really very, very easy. Knight d3, rook f1, b3, a7, b2, b8. And, well, that turned out to be an extra rook for white. So not immediately obvious how bad this is, but again, you know, I think the fact that these minor pieces are finding it so hard to get developed, and the fact that white's pieces are actually, and this minor piece in particular, are so excellently placed to support both the queenside attack and a kingside attack, that yeah, that just accelerates white's play enormously. So e6 was played by Revenge at the TCEC. Bishop e3. Just developing the bishop nicely, and also supporting this f4 square. Why is that important? You'll see. f5, h6, g6 now from Revenge. Stockfish played bishop f6, which kind of feels, yeah, fg, fg, king g2, king f7. This felt like quite a nice idea, really, to you hold g7 and then just try and run with the king. It's very, very dangerous, but somehow, as always, Stockfish, you know, just about managed to survive here. And knight f3, queen b8, threatening rook g8 here. Got to go queen e4, d5, just sort of keeping things alive, but you know, hardly very pleasant this, but it looked like a decent idea to actually run with a king. g6 was played, h7, king h8, and now we're not trying anything now with bishop d4, actually a totally different plan, which is this move knight g2. And actually what we're threatening with the bishop on e3 is to bring the knight into f4 and go knight g6, and of course knight h4 is also a threat. We've also got ideas like bishop h6 coming into g7 as well. So an awful lot of threats there. I mean, the one thing that's really difficult, you know, just as a human, is that the pieces look so weird, you know, and you're struggling to work out, you know, am I good or am I not good? But again, just keep on thinking about these minor pieces. If they were over here somehow, bishop on g7, knight on e7, we wouldn't be talking about any problems for black. But yeah, just over here, they're just so far from the theatre of operations. It's terrible. Lots of games here. They're all ending in white wins here. Even when Revenge was playing white against Stockfish. So yeah, I mean, you really know that that things are serious then. Bishop b7 was one continuation. Queen b2, e5, knight d5, bishop g5, looking for bishop f6, rook e6, f4, d6, rook h6. I mean, still, if the knight comes out here, we'll just play rook takes c4. So you know, what do you do here? It's just too difficult, really. So a6 was played, takes here, d5 trying to block things up, but queen d4, bishop f6 check. Just total curtains, really. Just awful for black. So after knight g2, I mean, Revenge played quite decently, I think. Played e5. We got f takes g4 here. And then d5. So, I mean, black's actually managed to protect this pawn on c4. Also get some sort of wall of pawns to keep white's pieces at bay. And, you know, this knight's going to come in. So, from that point of view, it's a nice plan, right? I mean, it's you're really trying with black. You're giving yourself some potential for development. Bishop c5, rook f7. And then the move king g1. Very nice move, this. What's the idea? Well, the idea is that black played rook c6 in this position, defending along the 6th rank, so defending this pawn against rook h6, and preparing to bring the knight round. Now we play g takes f5. When you go rook f5, it's not check. That's why you play king g1, so now you can play e4. and break open this whole position. And then, of course, c4 is going to hang, and yeah, the rest as well. The rook on c6 is loose to start with. So g takes f5 is played, and now it's a little shimmy, but now white plays king f2. And, well, we're just going to bring the rook round to g1, and then we've got all these threats of coming into g8, knight h4 into g6. I mean, it's weird, right? It's a really weird position, but it's very, very dangerous for black. And, I mean, black played the move e4, and really you're trying to get your queen active. But, of course, yeah, this is also opening up the a1, h8 diagonal, so bishop d4, queen a1, also big threats. Rook cg1, rook g7, threatening to come into g3. And now there are a number of possibilities here. Knight e3 was what was played in all of my engine games. Queen f4 check, takes, queen h2, rook f1, and we're just hitting d5, f5, and also got some queen b2 checks, bishop d4s in there for good measure. Was just completely winning for white. Stockfish played rook h3 in this game. c3 from black. Black starting to get a little bit random, hoping to distract your rook over so that the queen can come in. But, I mean, d takes c3, there's nothing wrong with that either. But e3 was what Stockfish played. Don't understand that too well, but pretty decent move. Just supporting the knight coming into f4 now. You know, so why not? Why not be hyper accurate? Rook h6 played, just trying to chase away the rook from g3, so that if it takes, you could come in here and start giving some checks. But then knight f4 from white is very nice. If you go rook h3, I think it was just rook g7 here that was going to be very dangerous. King g7, queen g1 check, and takes. I've got queen check and bishop d4. Just yeah, too many holes in black's position. So after knight f4, bishop h4 check, king e2. I mean, we're threatening bishop d4 here, for example. So rook g4 was played. Black's sort of trying to establish some sort of advanced bridgehead, really. You know, put the rook on a protected square and keep the white pieces at bay. But d takes c3, king h7, rook h1. This knight on f4 defends g2, so everything for the king is covered. And now we're going to start lining up on this guy. Queen g8, king d2. I like this very much from Stockfish. King c2. You're just taking some time to bring the king to safety, and now this queen is going to come round to d1 and start threatening d5. So knight e6 takes, and now this lovely move rook h2, covering rook g2, and yeah, what have we got everywhere? Well, now we just go on the other side. a7 is hanging, and we're just going to push our pawns to glory. b4, bishop d4, f3, b5. I mean, Revenge putting it up a good resistance here, but there's just too much, really. And the white king is just too safe. I mean, I can even give up a rook now for this g pawn, move the king over to b3, and these guys will queen. So just too many big advantages. And again, quite striking that you know, these pawns were moved to a5 and b4 very early to tie down the black queen side, and now these are proving decisive. Queen g4 takes, and well, after rook takes g2, this didn't take Stockfish too long to finish off. So really very interesting there. As I said, you know, this wasn't... I like this opening move very much. It was slightly different. It was not doing the normal thing of just opening up the diagonal pieces straight away in the opening, which is, you know, I think that's a very good general principle, but it's not necessarily the only principle. Here, white was thinking ahead and trying to connect a number of pieces in a sort of an area of the board, really. And, well, I mean, this was stunningly successful. I mean, this nice move here connects the bishop on d1 with the position, and then a5, you know, just sort of putting barbed wire in a way, you know, on the squares along the g1, a7 diagonal, was really, really nice. You know, it's really nice play here. And, yeah, I mean, I thought that this game of Stockfishes, where it took control of these squares and also secured c5 for its knight, was really, really nice. A lovely illustration of what white was really aiming for in the opening. And well, I mean, the middle game, this attack was simply stunning. And Yeah, I mean, it can be very difficult for humans to assess these Chess960 positions properly. I think because we assume that, certainly I do anyway, that pieces on their initial squares are undeveloped. That's what I'm assuming, and you don't always make the transition to seeing how well the pieces are doing on their original squares, or even think about how can you combine other play, maybe involving pawn sacrifices or whatever, in order to make those pieces incredibly well placed on their initial squares. It takes quite a bit of, takes a little bit of advanced thinking to do that, and I think quite a bit of experience with Chess960. And certainly the best engines. I think Leela in particular does this really, really well. But well, as you can see, Stockfish is also pretty decent at it. And this was an absolutely gorgeous game. I thought it was really, super high class Chess960. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you're enjoying this Chess960 series. I have to say that I think previous Fischer Random tournaments at the TCEC have been good, but somehow I wasn't half as excited as I am here. I mean, I've just had a surfeit of games. I'm working my way through them, but a surfeit of games that I've really wanted to analyse. I think the engines have really made a giant step in Chess960, and they're showing us possibilities that we just never dream of. So hopefully, being exposed to them and enjoying them, and can help us get inspired with them and improve our Chess960. Because I think certainly on the human level, we've got loads and loads of scope for improvement there. But brilliant stuff. Do tune into the TCEC. Really thrilling super final going on at the moment. As I said, Leela leading by 1 point. I think round game 22-23. And keep watching these videos. Maybe give a like, maybe subscribe, maybe take a look at my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement. And otherwise, hope to see you at the next video. Thanks for watching.